Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi o te pō. I'd like to talk to you a wee bit, just take a few moments to talk about sustainability and why I think it's so important. We have a saying at Albany Senior High School that the question is no longer if you are bright, it's how you are bright. We stole it, but it's a good saying, we'll keep it. And it really just acknowledges how much education has moved on. We've moved past that half must pass, half must fail paradigm. And in fact, recognise that there isn't any longer a canon of academic subjects and then a second tier of other subjects. That in fact, this glorious world that we live in means that you can make your way in the world just harnessing the special talents that you have. And our job as educators is to harness those talents and to help you make the most of those. And in a digital world, you need to use digital tools in order to be able to make the most of those talents. It doesn't matter whether you want to be the next Ed Hillary, the next Karen Walker, the next Ernest Rutherford. You will need digital tools. And so when we were putting the school together, the school's been running for 2 years now, we thought about the suite of digital tools that our students would need in order to make their way in the world. And it was large, it was extensive. And we very quickly realised that there was no way, even if we spent our entire operating budget just on software, there was no way that we were going to provide the full suite of tools that our students would need in order to succeed in the world. And so we decided to do things differently, and we decided to embrace open source. And so we're able actually to put together the most fabulous software stack that enables our learners to become really powerful users of technology and powerful users of their own life. So even if you think about just the design suite, so instead of Photoshop and InDesign and the other proprietary tools, what we do is we've stacked the computers with the GIMP, we've used Scribus, we use Inkscape, we use Blender 3D, and just the cost of those, the proprietary alternatives of that software, that's probably about $8,000 per machine. There's no way we could afford to put that amount of software onto every one of our machines. Sure, we could get some site licenses and that would bring the cost per seat down, but what that doesn't do is let our learners install that software on every computer they have access to at home. And so we know that learning does not start and stop at the school gate. Learning is 24/7. Learning happens wherever the student is. And the site license doesn't let them continue their learning. It's particularly an issue for our Māori and Pasifika students who are overrepresented in just about every poverty statistic that you can look at, and it's particularly damaging for them. They're precisely the students that need access to these tools. There's three choices that you can have as a Māori Pasifika student. You could, in that situation, you could continue to underachieve, you could find $8,000 and give it to a rich American, or you could, and this is what happens most of the time, you could illegally obtain a copy of the software and use it. And what we as educators do most of the time is we turn a blind eye to that. We also turn a blind eye to the fact that it was our choice about software that led them to make that choice to perform an illegal act. And that's got to change. There's a different way of doing things. So in terms of sustainability, that's not sustainable. Turning a blind eye to students illegally copying software is not sustainable. We're lucky enough to work in a sector, in an industry where we're working in a sustainable ecosystem of developers. If we want development done for us, for the school, we go to any one of a number of companies like Catalyst and OSS and Katapo and TechnologyWise, and we'll get them to work on software for us. We're paying good creative Kiwis to stay in New Zealand rather than giving money to Cupertino or Redmond to go and attract those fantastic Kiwis offshore and possibly never have them return to our shores. We're actually supporting our local ecosystem, and that's sustainable. We're also making really good strides in education on open identity and access management. Some fantastic stuff that's going on. A student that logs into a computer, a desktop at our school, opens a browser, and they can go without presenting another username or password to check their email, they can look at calendar, their documents, they can look at the library management system, video server, learning management system, e-portfolio system, any one of a number of suite of tools that are really important in their digital life. That's all glued together by open source software. That's all supported and promoted by the Ministry of Education. That's all released, all the knowledge behind that's released under a Creative Commons license, so any other school can have what we've got. It's fantastic. It also opens up new opportunities about the way that those environments interact with each other. Imagine if you logged into the library management system and it realised it was you, and it said you've got the following books out and you've got the following overdues out, you need to return them. Actually, Koha can do that already, but imagine if it knew the classes that you were enrolled in your learning management system, was able to present recommendations based on those classes that you're taking. The cleverness of the interaction is there. We're seeing really interesting work happening in the area of open content, collaborative, remixable, open education resources. So your science lesson might be just perfect for my lesson, for my learners, with a couple of tweaks here and there. Creative Commons, open education resource facilitates that kind of collaboration, that kind of tweaking, that kind of personalisation to meet the needs of the group of students sitting in front of you. We've got students creating video tutorials of how to do simultaneous equations and solving simple logarithms, uploading those into WikiEducator and actually using those as tutorials for other students to learn those subjects. They're writing the textbooks as they go through the course. The challenge really now is to open up the content vaults. We really need to facilitate more innovation. We need to allow more peer review to occur, and particularly the content that was created funded by the taxpayer, whether that's by central agencies or teachers being paid by the taxpayer. We need to open up that content. And our students are very used to being content creators. They're used to mashups. They're used to reuse and to creating derivative versions. What we need to do is to release the content in the curriculum to allow them to do that. We also need to start thinking about sustainability of devices. Students are free to bring any device to our school. They hook onto our wireless network and they use our infrastructure to use their device to learn. And that's important for a couple of reasons. It honours their paradigm and who they are, and recognises that if they prefer to use a particular device, they should be able to do that. But it also allows them to play off their strengths. It lets them choose the thing that works for them. And we as a school need to be enabling that. It also has the added benefit of being much cheaper than having me provide one-to-one devices for these students, because they're bringing them in and I don't have to provide quite so many. More of the tools that we use go into the browser. Increasingly, the operating system and the Office suite becomes irrelevant. That's traditionally the cornerstone of education, but increasingly we're seeing that becoming irrelevant. And as that irrelevance occurs with, as Don said, the explosion of stunning Android-powered tablets, we need to move away from more of from the centrally procured software model that we're used to. The paradigm is shifting. We need to shift accordingly. So the Ministry of Education's presence here tonight is evidence that they're well aware of the challenges they face, and it's evidence that they're actively seeking alternatives to deals like the Microsoft agreement. In a climate of having to do increasingly more with less and less, they know that the current funding model is unsustainable. As more and more schools procure class sets of netbooks for their students to use, the cost of the Microsoft agreement goes up. It's a ballooning cost. So not only does the school pay for the operating system at the time of purchase of that netbook through OEM licensing, the ministry then has to pay for it again, regardless of whether the software is actually installed and being used or not. So it gives rise to perverse results like the fact that the ministry has to pay Microsoft for the licensing for our 250 devices, even though those devices are not actually running Microsoft, they're running Ubuntu Linux. That model has to change. That's unsustainable. It will be a challenge for education, but as I say, the paradigm has shifted. We need to shift as well. So sustainability is about balancing budgets, and it's about making sure that we get the best bang for the buck, but it's more than that. It's about ensuring not only that Aotearoa thrives, but also the young people to whom we're going to entrust this country will thrive as well. It's wonderful to see so many fantastic faces, so many fantastic projects represented here tonight, and I know that their future is in good hands. Thank you very much.